Joining me right now is Brian Festa. He is the vice president and co-founder of WeThePatriotsUSA.org. Thank you for joining me.
That's right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you have a lot going on. Tell us about two key initiatives you're dealing with right now with the Supreme Court. Let's start with the vaccine or religious exemption issue, I should say. Start there.
Sure. So we have a case right now at the U.S. Supreme Court to win back religious exemptions for school children, religious exemptions to vaccination. So in Connecticut in 2021, they did away with religious exemptions completely, like they did in 2015 in California, in 2019 in New York, and in 2020 in Maine. If we win this case, we could win back religious exemptions for children in all of those states. Now, those states comprise, and if you include West Virginia, which has never had a religious exemption, those states comprise 20% of the U.S. population. So what this means is that 20% of the school children in the country right now cannot refuse vaccination. So if there's a mandate, and there are, every state mandates vaccinations, if they add COVID to that list, which it's already approved on the childhood schedule by ACIP at the CDC, they've already added it. If they add COVID to be a mandatory vaccination for school children, that will mean that 20% of the children in this country, 1/5, will not be able to opt out of that if they want an education. That's huge. If we win this case, we will win back the right to opt out for all of those children, because if we win in Connecticut, it's going to open the door to have the religious exemption back in California, New York, and Maine and West Virginia. So it's a huge case. Next week, June 20th, the Supreme Court is meeting in conference. Our case is on their agenda, and we are very hopeful that they are going to vote to take up our case and give us a full hearing.
So give us a little bit more about that timeline. Next week is a big deal, and you're hopeful. What do you expect to come after that?
So if they vote to take up our case, that would give us a hearing in the fall, most likely in like October or November, because they break for the summer recess July until October. So when they come back in session in October, either October or November, we would most likely have our hearing then, and then a decision would be issued sometime next year. So I know it seems like a long process. We've already been fighting over 3 years for this.
Right.
It was April of 2021 that they removed the religious exemption, and we stood on the steps of the Connecticut Supreme Court back then and said, we're taking this all the way to DC, to the US Supreme Court, and here we are, three plus years later.
So now let's shift over to your efforts regarding election integrity. Tell us what you have going on right now in that regard.
So we are a 501c3 organization, so we're a nonpartisan. We can't endorse any candidate or oppose any candidate. However, what we can do is get involved in litigation to restore election integrity. Obviously, that's what this weekend's all about. People are gathering here because after what happened in 2020 and even 2022, people are very, very concerned about losing this election by fraud, okay? You see what they're doing right now with the weaponization of the justice system against President Trump, against Steve Bannon and others, okay? And so what we are doing is fighting back in the courts with our own form of lawfare to take back this country one lawsuit at a time. So right now we're announcing an initiative, and you're actually the first interview I'm doing, so we're announcing it this weekend. This is breaking news. We are announcing an initiative along with FightVoterFraud.org, a great organization out of Connecticut that we're partnering with, but they're also a nationwide organization. And what we're doing is filing litigation in several different states, beginning with Florida, to remove deceased voters from the rolls. The National Voter Registration Act, Section 8 of the National Voter Registration Act, requires that states take reasonable action and maintain programs within a reasonable amount of time to remove any inactive or deceased voters from their rolls. We did a random sampling of over 2,400 voters in Florida. In Florida alone, folks, 21% of those voters were deceased and still on the rolls. And make no mistake, if we don't remove them, they will be casting a ballot for Joe Biden come November.
So many people are concerned about election fraud. What has the public support level been for your efforts? Are you feeling anything? Is there any way for you to track whether you have the momentum you need to be successful?
Yeah, well, the biggest obstacle, we have tons of people behind us, okay? People love us, the people we're working for, our clients, we offer everything pro bono. We're a pro bono, like I said, a nonprofit organization, so the people are behind us. The one who's opposing us the most is the resident of the Oval Office, Bidenomics. Okay, Bidenomics has crushed this economy. When people don't even have enough money to put food on the table or to put gas in their tank, the last thing they're thinking about, folks, is giving to charity. Now, we saw people came out in big numbers obviously for President Trump after his 34 convictions, okay?
Whatever you want to call them.
That's all I'm going to say
Leave
right
it there.
now.
Yeah,
Okay,
no.
34 felony convictions, which I am quite sure, I'm an attorney, I'm not a criminal attorney, we do constitutional law, but I will say as an attorney, I'm quite confident he's going to have those overturned.
Most
okay?
are, I think. That's the sentiment.
It's obviously it has to go through the appeals process, and in the meantime, they're probably going to place a lot of restrictions on him at the very least, so he can't campaign, okay? This is weaponization of our justice system. When I became an attorney, I'm barred in 2 states as well as several federal courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court. I've had to take an oath several times, okay, to uphold the Constitution and the rule of law, all right? And every single attorney, every prosecutor, every judge involved in this needs to remember their oath. You took an oath to swear to uphold the Constitution, which, folks, is the supreme law of the land, not the law of the state of New York, not any executive order. The United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and we need to uphold it. So what we need most of all, honestly, is funding. Because of Bidenomics, people aren't giving as they were a couple of years ago. We've been able to stay afloat, and that's great, and we're hopeful that we're going to continue to stay afloat. But we need people to get behind this, because a lot of times, especially during an election year, everybody's just focused on the polls. They're forgetting about what we're doing in court. But don't forget about court, because look what just happened in court a couple of weeks ago with President Trump. Look what's happening to Steve Bannon. Don't forget about court. Look what just happened in the Ninth Circuit. Key ruling. I wrote a blog post on our Substack, Free the Law. You can find it at wethepatriotsusa.org or on Substack. But I wrote a blog about that Ninth Circuit ruling. That is huge, because what that's going to open the door for is any vaccine, if it can't be proven to be effective in preventing transmission, then Jacobson v. Massachusetts, 1905 Supreme Court case that has been used again and again and again to mandate vaccinations and to also deny religious exemptions, even though Jacobson said nothing about that. They used that case. The Ninth Circuit, believe it or not, out of California, San Francisco, California, said that if it's proven, after this goes through trial, they allowed it to go through trial, if it's proven that the COVID shot does not prevent transmission of COVID, which we know it doesn't, the CDC, the FDA, the data proves it doesn't. They have no evidence that it does. Once that's proven, then you cannot apply Jacobson to use the police power to mandate these vaccinations. That is a landmark decision, and I know it's been talked about a lot, but for finally, at long last, the science will be put on trial.
It's long overdue. So thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for joining me today, and good luck. We need you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.